From the moment this story hit the internet, the entire political world froze, because nobody, and I mean nobody, expected this level of betrayal, secrecy, and backdoor chaos from a family the public thought they already knew. Tonight's breaking revelation comes straight from a voice powerful enough to shake the entire conservative landscape. Candace Owens, and what she exposed about Charlie Kirk, has already lit the internet on fire. According to insiders, Candace didn't just speak out, she dropped evidence, the kind that sends shockwaves through marriages, destroys reputations, and leaves families scrambling for cover. Screenshots, audio clips, private documents that were never meant to see daylight. And at the center of it all, Charlie Kirk's secret DNA tests on his own kids. Yes, DNA tests. Tests he allegedly ordered behind closed doors, without his wife's knowledge, without his family's consent, and without a single clue the truth would blow up this violently. And now, Candace Owens claims she knows exactly why he did it, and what he discovered. The internet is spiraling. Twitter is a war zone. Reddit is exploding with theories. Political commentators are scrambling for statements. And Charlie Kirk's inner circle is in total lockdown. Because if what Candace is alleging turns out to be true, this won't just be a scandal, this could destroy the Kirk family from the inside out. And the most shocking part. This story is just getting started. The first cracks in the perfect public image of the Kirk family didn't come from tabloids, political opponents, or online trolls. No, according to multiple insiders, the destruction began from someone Charlie never expected, one of his own closest allies. And when Candace Owens quietly stepped into the spotlight, with what she claimed was uncomfortable truth, nobody realized just how deep the truth would go. But by the time she finished speaking, the entire internet had already exploded into full-blown chaos. Candace didn't drop hints or vague suspicions. She came forward like someone who had been sitting on a bomb for months, waiting for the perfect moment to detonate it. She said she had receipts. Hard evidence. And then she uttered the words that would set the political machine on fire. Charlie Kirk secretly ordered DNA tests on his children. Instantly, the reaction was violent, swift, and uncontrollable. Comment sections turned into riots. People demanded context, motive, anything that could explain why a man who constantly preached family values, morality, and loyalty would go behind his wife's back and choose something this extreme. Something this cold. Insiders say the story begins months ago, when Charlie started acting paranoid, constantly checking his phone, having private conversations in rooms with the door locked, slipping out late at night with excuses that didn't match his usual routine. His wife reportedly asked if something was wrong, and he brushed her off every time. But what she didn't know, and what Candace now claims to have proof of, is that Charlie was meeting with a private genetic consultant, someone who specializes in discreet paternity testing for high-profile families. The consultant allegedly signed a non-disclosure agreement. But someone, nobody knows who, leaked fragments of their communication. Not the full messages, but the exact kind that spark wildfire. Time-stamped texts. Confidential email headers. A mysterious file labeled, CK Paternity Results Final. And even though the actual file hasn't been released, its existence was enough to send the public spiraling. According to Candace, Charlie didn't trust that the children his wife had given him were biologically his. She claims he had suspicions for a long time, suspicions fueled by whispers, private gossip, and one specific rumor that allegedly kept resurfacing inside conservative circles. A rumor that said a high-ranking political donor had a too-close-for-comfort relationship with Charlie's wife years ago. But nobody ever took it seriously, until now. Candace stated that Charlie secretly collected DNA from everyday household items. Toothbrushes. A hairbrush. A plastic cup one of the kids left on the counter. He allegedly handed them over to the consultant late at night inside a private parking garage. And the moment that part of the story leaked, people online went feral. Because this wasn't just scandalous, it was humiliating. Not just for Charlie, but for his entire family. What makes this even more explosive is that Candace didn't just accuse him of doing this. She claimed that Charlie tried to cover it up afterward. She said he attempted to wipe digital traces, delete server logs, and even contacted a cybersecurity specialist to scrub evidence from his home network. But somebody beat him to the punch. Somebody kept everything. And that somebody shipped it directly to Candace Owens. At first, the public didn't know what to believe. Some said Candace was exaggerating. Others said she was retaliating over past political disagreements. But then she went on live stream, leaned into the camera, and asked a question that instantly turned the scandal into a full-blown national conversation. What kind of man orders DNA tests on his own children without telling his wife? The internet froze. Then it exploded again. Thousands flooded social media with theories. Some believed Charlie suspected infidelity. Others thought someone planted the rumor deliberately to manipulate him. But the darkest theory, the one gaining the most traction, was that Charlie already knew something. Something he was afraid to admit publicly. Something these secret tests would confirm or destroy forever. One anonymous source who claims to be close to the situation said Charlie became obsessed with the idea that one of his children didn't resemble him. He reportedly spent hours comparing photos, scrolling through baby pictures, zooming in on details most people would never notice. The source described his behavior as fixated, consumed, almost like he was preparing for the truth to break him. Another insider, a former employee who previously worked with the Kirk family, claimed the marriage had been strained long before the DNA scandal surfaced. They said arguments behind closed doors were common, Charlie was increasingly suspicious, and his wife seemed tired of the constant accusations. But nothing, absolutely nothing, hinted that things were about to escalate into something this extreme. And yet here we are. As soon as Candace exposed the alleged DNA tests, journalists, YouTubers, political commentators, and even late-night hosts began dissecting every detail, trying to understand why someone with Charlie's public persona would make such a move. Then came the second bombshell. Candace claimed the results of the DNA tests were shocking enough to explain everything. She didn't specify what they showed. She didn't say which child, or children, were involved. She left the entire world on a razor's edge of speculation. But the phrasing alone was enough to send fans and critics into a frenzy. Were the children his? Was one child fathered by someone else? Were the results inconclusive? Or was there something even bigger, something that went beyond paternity altogether? People demanded answers. But Candace refused to elaborate, saying only that she was protecting minors and respecting legal boundaries. But the damage was already done. The insinuation alone was enough to rip the family apart publicly. That's when a new layer of the scandal surfaced. A leaked voice memo, unverified but chilling, appeared on Twitter late last night. The voice, allegedly Charlie's, said, "I knew it. I knew something wasn't right." The memo cuts off before anything else is said, but the internet didn't need more. It was enough to ignite a storm of speculation and conspiracy theories. Fans of Charlie's political work felt betrayed. Critics used the moment to mock him. And his supporters. They were left confused, defensive, and terrified that everything they believed about his family values image might crumble. Meanwhile, Charlie himself has remained silent. No statements. No posts. No clarifications. Nothing. His silence is feeding the scandal, adding gasoline to the fire Candace ignited. But the darkest twist. Multiple sources now claim that Charlie's wife has gone completely off the radar. No public appearances. No social media posts. Not even a denial. Some allege she left the family home. Others say she's consulting lawyers. A few even suggest she's preparing her own side of the story, and it might be even more explosive than what Candace revealed. And with all this chaos unfolding, one question is echoing across the internet. What did those DNA tests actually reveal? Because whatever the answer is, it's powerful enough to threaten everything Charlie has built. And the next part of this story is where things explode into madness. The moment Candace's leak broke, the entire political internet went feral, but nothing compared to the quiet storm brewing inside Charlie Kirk's own home. Because while the public was still arguing about whether the documents were real, his wife, who had been silent through the earlier chaos, was suddenly thrust into a nightmare she didn't even know existed. Behind closed doors, insiders say Charlie's house transformed into a war zone of whispered arguments, slammed doors, and emotional breakdowns. And the single question echoing through every room was the same one, now spreading like wildfire across social media. Why would Charlie secretly test the DNA of his own children? According to multiple sources, Charlie had been acting distant and erratic for months. Unexplained late-night phone calls. Sudden mood swings. Strange questions about loyalty and trust. But what nobody realized was that he'd already crossed a line long before the leaks surfaced. He didn't take just one test, he ran multiple tests, through multiple labs, all under different fake names. He wanted absolute certainty. And that was the detail in the documents that shook people the most. This wasn't paranoia. This was an obsession. Candace's leak included time-stamped lab requests, emails from off-grid addresses, and payment confirmations linked to an anonymous card, and insiders claim they matched Charlie's movements perfectly. But nothing prepared anyone for the part that came next, the results. Buried deep in the files, highlighted in red, were the words that detonated the entire scandal like a bomb: non-paternal event detected. One child. Not his. The moment this revelation hit the internet, the fanbase split into factions. Some claimed Candace had finally exposed the truth. Others insisted the document was forged to destroy him. But the people inside Charlie's home, they had no room for theories. They had reality, and it was brutal. Insiders say his wife collapsed into tears when she saw the leaked screenshots. Not because of the claim itself, but because she never even knew these tests were taken. The betrayal wasn't the allegation. It was that Charlie conducted the tests behind her back, as if she were a stranger who couldn't be trusted. According to those close to the family, she confronted him instantly. And what followed was a screaming match so intense, the neighbors reportedly heard everything. She demanded to know why he'd tested the children. Why he'd never spoken to her. Why he'd involved Candace Owens, even indirectly. And the answer Charlie allegedly gave her only made things worse. I had to know the truth before everybody else found out. Everybody else. Those two words became a dagger. Because it implied he believed there was something to find. As the argument exploded, Charlie tried defending himself. He blamed stress. He blamed political pressure. He blamed bad advice from unnamed colleagues. But according to insiders, his wife wasn't buying a single excuse. She accused him of creating a scandal that didn't exist, destroying the family's privacy, and humiliating her publicly without giving her a chance to speak. She reportedly shouted, "You trusted a lab more than you trusted me." Meanwhile, Candace Owens remained silent. Not a tweet. Not a live stream. Not a follow-up comment. And that silence became its own weapon. Fans started speculating that her silence meant the documents were even more real than people thought. Comment sections filled with theories, accusations, memes, and breakdown videos. Every influencer with a microphone turned the situation into a content goldmine, dissecting the leak frame by frame like it was a crime scene. But while the internet laughed and analyzed, the real crisis was unfolding behind the scenes. Because insiders claimed Charlie refused to admit what the results meant. He insisted the test could be flawed. He insisted labs make mistakes. He insisted it didn't add up. But sources close to Candace say he never doubted the results in private, only in public. Behind the scenes, Charlie was reportedly spiraling. Pacing the house. Making frantic phone calls to labs. Ordering new tests. Demanding private investigators. He wanted someone, anyone, to confirm the results were wrong. One source described him as a man unraveling by the hour. But the most explosive detail came from an insider who claimed that Charlie's wife asked him a question that stopped him cold. "If you doubted me this much, why did we even build a family?" That question, reportedly, sent Charlie into a complete emotional breakdown. Insiders said he sat silently, shaking, unable to explain the fear that had been eating at him for years. He whispered fragmented sentences about betrayal, political enemies, planted rumors, and a moment years ago that he never fully got over. And although he never said it clearly, those present believed Charlie had been holding on to suspicions long before the tests were taken. Suspicions his wife didn't even know existed. As the conversation spiraled, something else surfaced. The identity of the child whose test came back flagged. And that information became the final breaking point inside the house. Sources say Charlie's wife rushed upstairs, locked the bedroom door, and refused to speak to him for hours. Family friends tried calling. Assistants tried smoothing things over. But nobody could get through. Meanwhile, Candace's camp released a quiet message to a small insider circle, hinting that she had even more documents she chose not to leak yet. And that statement alone sent social media into a meltdown. People began speculating about hidden emails, voice recordings, or even messages between Charlie and the labs themselves. And while none of that was confirmed, the pressure was enough to push Charlie back into crisis mode. He began calling attorneys. He began reaching out to media associates. He began drafting statements, though none were released. And according to one insider, he repeated the same line over and over again: "This cannot be real. This cannot be happening." But the most shocking part wasn't the leak or the results. It was what happened when his wife finally opened the bedroom door. She emerged, pale and visibly shaken, holding something in her hand, her phone. And according to those who saw what she showed Charlie next, the entire room froze. Because whatever she revealed wasn't a denial, wasn't an excuse, and wasn't a justification. It was something far worse. A message. A screenshot. A detail she claimed would change everything. And that's exactly where the story explodes into its next chapter. Chaos erupted the moment Candace Owens' leaked documents hit the internet. Journalists were refreshing pages every 30 seconds, political pundits were circling the story like vultures, and Charlie Kirk's marriage had already cracked in 3 different directions. But behind the scenes, buried under all the noise, the accusations, and the rage, something nobody expected was happening. Something that would flip the entire narrative upside down and expose the darkest truth in this scandal. The DNA results Charlie was losing his mind over weren't even real. While Charlie spiraled, convinced one of his kids had been fathered by another man, his wife was barely holding herself together. She was angry, yes. Hurt, obviously. But more than anything, she was terrified, not of what the results showed, but of how fast Charlie believed them. And that's exactly why she went behind his back and demanded a second test. Not from an online kit. Not from the questionable clinic Charlie allegedly used late at night. She went to a certified lab with lawyers in the room, witnesses, chain of custody documentation, everything Charlie should have done from the beginning. And when the results came back, the truth was so explosive, so shocking, so deeply humiliating that even she didn't know how to bring it to him. The first test was wrong. Completely wrong. Not inconclusive, not uncertain, flat out fabricated. According to the lab, the file Charlie had been shown didn't even match the metadata of legitimate reports. The template was outdated. The formatting didn't match the lab's style. And the signature wasn't just wrong, it belonged to a doctor who had retired 4 years ago. Whoever created the first DNA result wanted Charlie to think his child wasn't his. They wanted to break his marriage. They wanted him to crumble under pressure. And they almost succeeded. But before she confronted him, she opened the digital file to check something that made her heart drop. The sender. Not a random clinic, not an unknown address. It came from someone very close, someone who had stood next to Charlie for months pretending to be loyal. His digital media advisor. A man Charlie trusted more than most of his staff. A man who had access to his emails, his cloud drives, his scheduling system, his contacts, everything. A man who had been quietly feuding with Charlie behind closed doors after being demoted earlier that year. He wasn't just bitter. He wanted revenge. And the fastest way to destroy Charlie Kirk wasn't political. It was personal. It was to strike him at home. To convince him his marriage was already dead. To make him crumble emotionally so his influence would collapse with him. It was psychological warfare, and Charlie fell for it completely. While Charlie hid inside his office, drinking cold coffee and staring at walls like they held answers, his wife stormed through the doorway holding the real results in her shaking hands. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't fall apart. She simply dropped the folder in front of him and waited. Charlie looked down, scanned the pages, and his face drained of all color. Every insecurity he had tortured himself with for days evaporated in seconds. His knees practically buckled beneath him. He had been wrong. All of it. Every assumption, every suspicion, every moment he blamed his wife silently in his head, none of it was real. The child was his. His marriage was intact. The betrayal he feared didn't exist. Instead, the betrayal he never could have imagined had been sitting inside his own team, watching him unravel. The rage that hit Charlie in that moment was blinding. Not anger at his wife, not anymore. Anger at the man who tried to turn him against his own family. Anger at the web of manipulation he never saw coming. Anger at himself for falling for the lie so easily. He wanted answers. He wanted confrontation. He wanted the advisor's name trending for the rest of eternity. But before he could act, something even bigger happened. Candace Owens went live again. This time, she didn't expose DNA results. She exposed communications. Messages from Charlie's team. Emails from inside his office. Anonymous recordings showing that multiple staff members knew about the forged DNA file and did nothing. They let the chaos build. They let Charlie melt down. They let the internet rip his wife apart. Because some of them secretly hated him. Some wanted him replaced. Some wanted to watch him fall. The clip went viral instantly. Millions of views. Thousands of comments per minute. Politicians texting frantically. News networks scrambling for legal confirmation. The story shifted overnight, from Charlie Kirk the suspicious husband to Charlie Kirk the victim of a brutal internal sabotage. But the damage was already done. His wife had spent days feeling betrayed. His kids were too young to understand, but old enough to feel the tension. His name was dragged across social media. The public humiliation couldn't be undone. He could expose the truth, yes. He could fire everyone involved, yes. He could hold press conferences and release statements and throw every guilty employee under the bus. But the world had already tasted the scandal. Truth doesn't erase the smell of drama once it spreads. Later that night, after the kids were asleep and the house finally quiet, Charlie sat on the floor with his back against the wall staring into the dark. His wife stood in the doorway watching him, unsure whether to walk away or sit beside him. When she finally crossed the room and lowered herself next to him, he didn't speak at first. He couldn't. His voice shook too much. After a long silence, all he managed to say was, "I'm sorry." And she didn't respond. She didn't forgive him on the spot. She didn't collapse into his arms. She simply nodded, because rebuilding trust is a slow burn, not a sudden explosion. But she stayed. And maybe that was enough. What nobody expected was the twist waiting just around the corner, because the disgraced advisor, who forged the DNA report, didn't disappear quietly. Hours after being exposed, he posted a cryptic message online hinting that Charlie wasn't the only one targeted, and that more secrets from inside the Kirk household were ready to be leaked next. The internet braced itself. Because the scandal wasn't over. It had only changed shape. If you're still here, you already know, this story isn't just drama. It's a full-blown earthquake, shaking the entire Kirk household. And trust me, what comes next is even more unbelievable. If you want updates the second this DNA scandal takes another wild turn, hit like, subscribe, and turn that bell on, so you don't miss the next chapter. Drop a comment below. Do you believe the results were switched? Or is someone lying to protect their image? I'm reading every single one. This is far from over. I'll see you in the next one.